lesson learned. So a lot of people were distracted. A lot of people were distracted. Even some of us, the instructors were really like very distracted. And but so today we're going to continue from where we ended and maybe have a little flashback on what we did on Tuesday. So we're going to have Madam Esley who will begin the class with. She'll begin the class with a presentation and maybe have a lab session, a short lab session with you guys. So I'm going to pass it on to Madam Esley. Give me a minute, Esley, please. So, but before that, do we have anyone with a question from our past classes? Any feedback that you think you can share with the class? Any feedback from any student? Any question? Okay. So if there are no questions and no feedbacks, then Esley, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Good morning, class, once more.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So
Good
when
morning.
the class is quiet, I'm kind of like, I'm not very comfortable because, you know, students need to study after the class and come up revamped with questions so it can be like interactive. You know, cybersecurity is kind of challenging at times. When you start, especially like a new field for most of us, you come in touch with so many new terminologies and things that we don't really understand well. But I know the more we keep talking about it, because it's always going to be almost the same thing, you'll be like your language, your vocabulary you're using every day. You know it, but let's just try to collaborate so the class can be interactive and we journey together. I was here some time ago. I started as a novice. I didn't know anything about it, but just kind of studying and working together with the lecturers. And so I thank God for where I am today. So I just encourage each and everyone to study. We really need to study because it's a lot of new things that we learn every day. You cannot just come, we present, and then you go sit on it, and then the next day you come back to class. By the time that it's time for you to maybe take a certification, get into interview prep, it's going to be challenging for you to start revisiting all that information at the same time. So let's just like do it together. Yeah, I can see a question in the chat. I don't know, Prof. or Doctor, can you guys handle that question while I'm trying to put my presentation together?
What is the question?
So Blending is asking to throw more light on watering hole attacks.
Prof, you want to take it or I should take it?
Oh, you can go ahead, Doctor.
No. Blandin, I think you can remember that we said a watering hole attack is a form of targeted attack against, it could be against a region, it could be against an organization, it could be against a group of targeted persons. And so the attack, we said that the attack is performed in three main phases. How do we do it? How is it done? The first phase is to observe the target's habits. When they are targeting a region, when they are targeting a group of persons, when they are targeting an organization, the first thing that they need to do is to observe their habits. What are their habits? What are their visits, like browsing, like what kind of sites do they visit? What are their activities in their organization? So the first thing is to observe their internet habits, the activities that happen on the network. That's the first thing that they do. And why are they trying to do this? They are trying to do, the goal is to discover a common resource. Where are they always meeting? Which website do they always visit? That's why they are taking time to observe and understand the activities that you people do. What are those different sites that you people visit? What are the locations that you visit? And when, how many members of that your group will do visit this particular website, will do visit this particular location? So if you are 80 in an organization, they now know your organization and they know that this organization has 80 employees or 80 workers or 80 whatever. But out of these 80, 70 are always visiting this particular website. They are always going there to browse. They are always going there to look for information. So now they know that that is a site that you frequent. They know that this particular organization frequents this particular site. And so when they know the location now, they call that location a watering hole. Where do we, back in Africa, we used to go to the streams to fetch water. And when you go to, where are you going to? You are going to that hole where you go and collect water. House A goes to that particular site. House B goes to that particular location to fetch for water. House C. So the whole of that city in the village goes to that water to fetch, to that small stream to fetch their water. That's the same analogy here. These people are using that to say that, okay, if this particular region or this particular city is always visiting this small stream, that's where they fetch their drinking water. So if we want to poison people in this region, in this city, we go and drop that poison in that watering hole, in where they go and fetch their water. It means that the whole of that city, what is going to happen? Everybody will be infected. Everybody in that city will be infected. So now when they have discovered the watering hole, which is that website that particular organization or the company visits at all times, or the group or the region, they visit it at all times, then they will now say, okay, they will go to the third side, the third phase now, which is what? They will go and target that side where you put and poison it. That's the third part. The third part is that they will poison that side, because the first thing was that they observed your activities. What activities do you do? Secondly, which are those sites that you visit? When they discover the site that you visit, they call it a watering hole. That the organization and a region, a city, a group of persons, they are always on this side. 90% of them are always on this side. So it is a watering hole. If we poison this watering hole, then we have gotten the whole organization. And so that's why we say that it is in three different phases. The first phase is to observe. The second, now you locate. Once you observe and you get that location, you call it a watering hole. That's the second stage. And the third stage is what? The third stage is now we come with our poison, with our malwares, and we infect that site. And so because the 90% of the people in that organization visit that website, they are all going to carry that malware back to the organization, and that's how they will get the organization. I don't know if that has answered your question.
Yep. So does that answer you, Blandine? Hello, Blandine.
Yeah, she writes that perfectly understood.
Yeah,
Okay.
I understand
Okay.
now. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
That's good. So before Esley continues, do we have a part two? Are you around now? You want to introduce yourself?
Maybe she
Okay.
has logged in and disappeared.
Okay. If not, then Esley, please continue with the class.
Okay. So today we'll be looking at how to prevent pass the hash attacks. And before we start looking at it, we'll just throw some little light on what these pass the hash attacks are. So what is a pass the hash attack? It's just that type of network attack where like an attacker intercepts, captures a hashed password from a victim's computer, then goes ahead to use it to authenticate to a network or a system. And this attack takes advantage of the fact that many authentication systems rely solely just on the hashed password, rather than maybe relying on the actual password to verify the user's identity. What does that mean? It means that if an attacker has access to a hash password, they can simply just submit that hash to the authentication system in order to gain access to the user's account without even knowing the original password. So from here, we can see like a diagram that shows how pass the hash attack takes place. And from the diagram, what do we see? From this, we have the client, we have the attacker, and then we have the server. So what happens? The attack typically starts with the victim authenticating to a server using, let's say, the username and the hashed password. So when the victim authenticates to the server, the attacker in this place then intercepts and captures the hashed password, which can be done through like various means such as maybe keylogging, sniffing, malware. We've had all those in our previous lectures. So when the attacker uses that means, they capture the hashed password. And with the hashed password, the attacker can then send their own authentication, because this is the route here, but the attacker from here intercepts and then sends their own authentication request to the server using the victim's username and the captured hash instead of the password. And since the hash is accepted as a valid form of authentication by the server, the attacker is then granted access into the system. So we just like one of the reasons why this pass the hash attack is so effective. One of the reasons why this pass the hash attack is so effective is just because they can bypass like many traditional measures, such as, in companies, they'll put in place firewalls, they'll put in place intrusion detection systems, and so on. So they're able to bypass that traditional security measure because the attacker himself is using legitimate credentials. When they intercept, they get your legitimate credentials, which makes it difficult for a security system to be able to detect that it is an attacker instead of the legitimate user. So how do we go ahead to, before we talk about like preventing this pass the hash attack, I mentioned that how does this attacker intercept and capture that information? It is using methods like keylogging, sniffing, or malware. And what is keylogging? We've seen it in our past classes that it's a type of cyber attack or a technique in which the attacker or monitoring system records every keystroke made by a computer or a keyboard. And it can just take advantage of like the username, password, confidential information, and so on. And what is sniffing is another kind of cyber attack where that attacker or a software intercepts and captures network traffic. And the goal of all this is to get that confidential information, that information that is meant to be kept confidential, usernames, our password, our information, like maybe, for example, social securities, you see those attackers are always there to get that information that is confidential to us. And malware as well, that attackers make use of to get our information, is just a short form of malicious software that is designed to cause damage to our computer systems or network devices and so on. And how are those malware delivered? Mostly by email, through visiting like infected websites, downloading softwares, and so on. So how can we go ahead to prevent this pass the hash attack? There are many methods that we can use to prevent. For example, it is always recommended that we make use of strong and unique passwords and limit the use of hashes in authentication processes. So I know it's a little bit contradictory because we said with this pass the hash attack, it's difficult to know that there is an attacker because they are using unique credentials. So it's difficult. Someone could ask like, why using a unique password, how would that help? But there is something that helps. When you go ahead to use that unique password, and then you also use like multi-factor authentication, that's abbreviated as MFA. So instead of relying solely on the password, you use multi-factor authentication to provide an extra layer of security. On top of that, your username and password. You're not relying just on the username, you're adding multi-factor authentication in it. So this will include like something the user has, for example, like a security token. Then it can also include like something the user is, for example, like a fingerprint, and so on. So in addition to that multi-factor authentication, just adding an extra layer of security on top of the username and password, it can go ahead to prevent unauthorized access, even if the attacker has obtained like the password hash, because the attacker gets stuck. Since you have to prove something that you know, something that you have, that attacker is not going to have it. And also, we can implement like security measures such as network segmentation, such as firewalls, intrusion detection system, to be able to detect and prevent the pass the hash attack. So what is network segmentation? This is just like the practice in which you divide like a computer network into smaller sub-networks. I know you'll see this when you start studying AWS, you'll see your subnets, you'll see how to divide your network into smaller segments. And why do you do that? It is done in order to reduce the attack surface and contain potential security breaches. So, for example, a company might separate like their financial department, like their financial department network from their marketing department network in order to prevent an attacker from gaining access to their sensitive financial information. So this even goes ahead to talk about like least privilege permission, because when they divide that, it only gives, like, for example, if you're in the financial department, it only gives you the privileges to access the financial data. Same as if you're in the marketing department, it gives you the privileges just to access the marketing data. How does that help? It reduces the surface area of the attack in case an attacker comes in. That attacker is not going to have a wide surface area. It will help to reduce how the attack could have affected the company. Because, you know, with cybersecurity, excessive permissions is always a critical security issue, because once you have a wide range of permissions, the moment an attacker gets into the system, they make use of that permission and they are able to perform a lot of tasks and it affects the system. So excessive permission is never a good thing. Then we talk about firewalls. What are firewalls? They are just those devices that control the flow of traffic, like between different networks. And it's always based on like a set of like predefined security rules. So these firewalls, they act as a barrier between an internal network and an external internet, for example. How does it work? It allows only authorized traffic to pass through the network. So for instance, let's just think of a firewall as a security guard that stands at the entrance of a building, checking the identity of each person who wants to gain access into that building. That's a firewall. Then we also talk about making use of IDS, which is intrusion detection system. And what is an IDS? An IDS is a system that monitors the network traffic for signs of potential malicious activities. So an IDS can be able to detect an alert of maybe let's say suspicious behavior, such as, for example, when something is happening in an environment like port scanning, unauthorized access attempts, malware infections, an IDS will be able to detect that something of that nature is happening. And it works by analyzing that network traffic and comparing it to non-patterns, because an IDS already knows the right patterns for a network traffic. And when it starts seeing abnormal traffic, it starts signifying that there may be something happening, and it's able to identify those anomalies and the red flags to know that something is about to happen. So with all these measures, we can be able to prevent pass the hash attack. So let's move on to, sorry, I'm not gonna be taking questions right now. If you have a question, just put it in the chat. So at the end, we'll handle the questions. So we'll go ahead with header manipulation. So what is header manipulation attack? A header manipulation attack is that attack where an attacker manipulates the HTTP, that's header. What is HTTP? Hypertext Transfer Protocol headers of a web request or a response. All of this, we're going to see it in a short demo in the lab. You'll see how the HTTP requests and responses look like, and then you understand how an attacker can manipulate them. So it's just that attack where an attacker manipulates the HTTP header of a web request or response in order to achieve a particular outcome. What is this outcome? It can just be done for reasons such as maybe gathering information, maybe exploiting vulnerabilities, or modifying the behavior of a web application. So we're talking about header manipulation. Maybe someone is wondering what is header manipulation, or what is a header? So in the context of, let's say, web communication, we can say a header is that part of HTTP protocol that contains data about the communication between the client and a server. And these headers are sent along with each HTTP request or response, and they contain information such as, let's say, the request type, the web server being used, the content, the type of data being sent, and many other details. And these headers can be used to transmit important information about the communication, such as authentication status of the user, the status of the request, and other details. However, it can also be manipulated. That's why we're talking about header manipulation. It does a lot of things, but it can also be manipulated by the attacker to exploit vulnerabilities or steal sensitive information. So let's continue with header manipulation. So, one way that attackers gather that information through header manipulation is by making use of tools such as Wireshark or Kismet. We're going to see Wireshark, how information is gathered through Wireshark and so on. And this allows the attacker to be able to capture and analyze the network traffic. And when the attacker captures and analyzes the network traffic, it can reveal valuable information such as the type of the web server being used, the operating system of the server, the application running, just all the information about the network. So those attackers can make use of tools such as Wireshark, Kismet, and once they have it, they are able to do their manipulation. And another way that those attackers are able to exploit header manipulation is by making use of cross-site scripting attacks. How do they make use of cross-site scripting attacks? Since with cross-site scripting, they're able to inject like malicious code into a web page that is then executed like in the user's browser. They can be able to make use of those, to be able to modify those headers, to be able to steal cookies, and to be able to perform like other malicious activities. And how do they modify headers or cookies? Attackers can use tools such as Temper. They can use tools such as Fireship. They can use tools such as Scapy or Scapy, as others call it. And what are these tools? They are tools that allows the attacker to be able to intercept and modify like HTTP requests or responses, which then enables them to be able to change the behavior of a web application. And it doesn't just end there, it helps them to be able to steal sensitive information. So let's throw more light on this Tempered, Fireship, and Scapy. Because what does Temper do? Temper is just a tool that is used to modify headers and contents of HTTP requests and responses. And the way it works, it allows the attacker to manipulate the data that is being sent over the network to be able to suit their needs. They customize that information to be able to suit their own needs, such as they are able to change the user agent, they're able to modify who is the referrer, who is using that information, they're able to change the content type that is being sent. With Temper, they can do all those. Then how about Fireship? Fireship is just a tool that allows the attackers to hijack a web session by, let's say, intercepting unencrypted HTTP traffic and then being able to capture the cookies. And in addition to that, Fireship will work by sniffing. What is sniffing? Sorry, sniffing of network traffic. And it's able to like identify sessions that are in progress, then use captured cookies to impersonate and gain like access to the account. What is sniffing? We've heard about sniffing and we'll keep hearing about it. Sniffing attack is just like when someone intercepts and reads packets that are like they intercept and read packages. And in that case, they're able to steal like sensitive information, for example, passwords, usernames, credit card information, and so on. So let's imagine sniffing to be like you are sending a letter to your friend, but in the course of sending that letter, someone else opens the envelope, reads the content before the content is able to reach your friend. What's happening here? They can now they already have access to your private messages. And in that case, they may be able to even pretend to be you and send messages to your friend on your behalf. So similarly, with a sniffing attack now, the attacker would intercept the packets of information you send over the internet and then read the content, which may include that private information that you don't want the attacker to have access to. And what happens when they do this? They use it for malicious activities. And most of the times, all this happen like over public Wi-Fi networks, which are often like not really secured. And sniffing can also occur maybe through like malicious softwares and so on and so forth. So this Fireship just makes use of the sniffing part of it to be able to modify all the headers and cookies and so on. Then how does SCAPI work? SCAPI is a powerful tool that is used in packet manipulation as well. And it allows the attacker to be able to capture, to be able to create, and to be able to send like custom network packets. And with this SCAPI, attackers can forge packets with any type of content, including those headers and cookies, to be able to perform like various types of attacks, including header manipulation. So we mentioned Wireshark. So we mentioned Wireshark to be like one of the ways that attackers are able to gather information. So now let's talk about this Wireshark. So how does Wireshark work in information gathering? So first of all, Wireshark is a network protocol analyzer that allows users to capture and inspect network traffic in real time. So attackers can use Wireshark to gather information for header manipulation, maybe by capturing packets that contain like the headers they want to manipulate. And then they further analyze the packets, like the packet content, to identify the specific header fields they want to modify. So let's say if malicious actors can gain access to a network or the security logs, they could make use of, because in Wireshark, you have the packet details. They could make use of the packet details to their advantage by hiding their tracks and avoiding detection. So how can they make use of the packet details? In Wireshark, it gives you like, so in Wireshark, it gives you that information. It gives you the protocol analysis. It gives you the filter and display option. Wireshark gives you decryption capabilities. And it gives you like, there's a way in Wireshark that you can tamper with packets. So how does Wireshark like make use of the protocol analysis of the tool? So with protocol analysis, Wireshark is able to provide like detailed analysis of protocols being used in the network. It includes like the source IP, the destination address, the port numbers, the payload data. We are all going to see that in the next slide or in the demonstration in the lab. So since it gives details to that, if those malicious actors are able to manipulate this data, they could hide their tracks and make it more difficult to detect their activities. So how do they make use of the filter and display options of Wireshark? Since Wireshark provides like a number of filtering and display options that can be used to, let's say, focus on some specific aspects of the network. Let me say, for example, the attackers could use that filtering option to be able to display the traffic from specific sources or destinations, or to only display the traffic on specific ports. And this could be used to hide their activities from the network security logs. So they would perform activities, but we cannot see it because of the filtering capabilities of Wireshark. Then Wireshark also has like decryption capabilities, which provides like the ability to be able to decrypt. With Wireshark, you can be able to decrypt like encrypted traffic, such as let's say SSL, that secure socket layer, and then TSL, which is a transport layer security. And if attackers are able to access the encryption keys, they could make use of Wireshark. They could make use of this capability of Wireshark to be able to decrypt the network traffic, to be able to gain access to confidential information, and to be able to hide their activities from the network security logs. Then also tampering with the packets. Wireshark is able to provide like the ability to manipulate network packets, such as changing the source or destination addresses, changing the port numbers, the payload data. And this could be used to hide attackers' activity and make it more difficult to detect their presence. So in general, it is like a best practice to keep in mind that these capabilities are useful for network administrators to diagnose and troubleshoot networks, but if a malicious actor is able to gain access to the network security logs, they could make use of these features that seem to be good features to hide their activities and make it difficult to be able to detect like what is going on. So this is just it's not very clear, but we'll see it in the lab itself, because this is like a Wireshark screen. You can see the time the capture was done. You can see the source. Sorry, let me see if there's something going on in the chat. Yeah, you can see in this Wireshark screen, you can see you have the time the scan was done. You can see the source IP, which is clear. You can see the destination. You can see the protocol. You can see the length, and you can see the information. It is a HTTP GET. And imagine attackers are able to have access to all this information. This is not just all the information. They are still able to get more analysis about the frame. It talks about the protocol. It talks about what, like the hypertext transfer protocol. You can see it here. It shows the GET request. It shows everything. So attackers make good use of this feature. So I'm going to set up my lab right now. You just give me like a few minutes so I can set up the lab so you understand how attackers make use of Wireshark to be able to gather their information.
Yeah, Ashley, maybe before you get to the lab, there are a number of questions that will you want to answer the questions now?
Okay. As I'm setting, let me set up my lab. It can take a few minutes. I'll stop sharing. Then I set up my lab. Once it's loading, then I can be taking the questions.
Okay. So you can just write down your questions. So you can send your questions to the chat. So when Ashley is ready, we'll take the questions before we move on with the lab. If you have any question about the lecture, please just send that in the chat.
Okay, so I'm seeing a couple of questions here. Let me see. I'll just like read them through because the lab will answer most of the questions. Somebody asked like, what is Kismet and Wireshark? I think, Prof, you answered the question. Then what are packets? We're going to see the packets as we load the lab.
Then another question, Dandy asks, how can an attacker deliver hash since hashing is done at the back end? I think maybe Jandy is missing something. You can just throw light on that.
Okay. So I'm loading my map right now.
Yeah.
Prof, ask any question that any of us can answer, we can answer. Then if she has something to support with, she then supports.
Oh, you mean the question that Dandy is asking?
No, I
Yeah,
mean like any question. Yeah, if they ask a question and then any of us have a response, we can give while she now supports with whatever additional knowledge.
yeah, again, because from Andy's question, hashing, the attacker is not actually doing the hashing. Like from, I think we looked at this even last week, that the attacker only intercepts using some of the tools that Esley just made mention of, and use those tools to capture the hash of the client. If I share my screen briefly, for us to look at that. 1 minute, please. I can share my screen briefly. Yeah. Okay. So so we don't take 1 minute. I'm just gonna reclaim that and I give it back to her. Okay. Yep. So if you look at the, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so if you look at this from this diagram, you see a client. The client has a hash password. He or she has a hash password, and this server, we talked about LDAP in the past. This server, like I gave a scenario, if you want to access your Google account, what you actually do when you enter your username and password, that password goes to a Google server that is somewhere, and that server goes to the library, which we said LDAP is like a library, goes to that library and check that, oh, do we have Dandy recorded here? Then if it checks and see that Dandy is there, then it comes back with a response and say, oh, since we've seen Dandy, we can now give you access to the system. But when it goes and check that, oh, there is no Dandy, we don't see the hash of that password you're entering, then it will come back with an error. It will come back with an error message. So this client has access because maybe when you created a Google account, that username and password was stored in this server. So this server recognized the client. The server recognized the client. When the client can get into his or her account at any time, log in, and will have access to this server. So what the attacker does, since the attacker does not have access, he wants to access this server. This is his or her endpoint. Wants to access this server, but does not have access, cannot be authorized. The server will not give authorization to the attacker. So what the attacker does is to stand in the middle and try to intercept traffic using some of the tools that Esley just made mention of. And like we said, for a client to access this server, there are other things here like the firewall. This could be a firewall or a switch, and maybe we can have also an IDS here that is checking for traffic. Or not IDS, maybe an IPS, intrusion prevention system, that is checking for traffic, like maybe an endpoint security. So the attacker stands and uses that tools to capture this password hash, the password hash of this client. Uses that tool to capture the password hash of this client. So the attacker does not create a password. He only uses tools to capture the password of client. He monitors traffic. He monitors traffic using Wireshark and the different tools that she made mention of, Wiresheep, Tamper. Uses those tools, capture the hash value, then now analyze that, then see the best way now to use that tool to access this server. Does that help?
Oh yeah, I think it helped a little bit. But what I understand from this is like the client itself, what the client enters to access his password is just a password that he created.
Yeah.
But this password that he created goes into the server, right? And what
Yeah.
the server understands is the hash that has been
The hash.
converted, that which happens in the server. The server convert the password into hash, which is saved in the server, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm asking is that if this attacker non-captured, what is going to capture from this client? Is it from the client? I think it's supposed to be the password instead of hash, because the hash is
Prof, let me add something.
Okay.
Yeah, who is talking? Is it Dandy?
It's Dandy. Yes.
Yeah, Dandy.
Okay, Dandy. We said, remember, we said last time that when you create a password, at that very moment that you create a password, that password is hashed automatically. The password is hashed. So whatever is being stored in the system is what we are calling the hash password. That's why here with the client, you see client authenticates to the server with a username and hash password. Because immediately you then seated there, if you go now into maybe you want to apply for a job and they ask you to create a username and a password, you are logged in from credentials, you will create a username, you will create a password. Immediately you create that password is hashed. It's not you hashing. It is not in the server that it is hashing. What the server has is the stored password that was already hashed. So it's in the database of this server that Dandy is one of our clients. Dandy is one of our new applicants. So your information now is in this server. When you come back to maybe if they call you for an interview for that job, the next minute it will be that you should log into your account. When Dandy goes to log into his account, he is going to use the password and the username that he created. So if you put that password, what happens? The system, the server where that organization is storing their data will now check, is there any guy here like Dandy, blah, blah, blah. If Dandy is not there, if the password you have entered is wrong, a message will come back, like Prof just explained, a message will come back to say, oh, there's an error here. But if you enter the right password that you created the first day you were trying to apply in that company, the password now will be recognized by who? By the server, because those passwords are stored in the server. So what we are trying to explain here is that this attacker sits in the middle here. When you enter your information, the server authenticates it and says, yes, there is Dandy in this system, and sends back the message to you, yes, Dandy, you can go ahead. That's when it gives you it authenticates you. Authentication simply means the system tells you, go ahead, we know you. So now, when the system authenticates, this guy is sitting here with a tool, the ones that Leslie just listed and many others, is sitting here with a tool that can crack this flow of information, that can capture this flow of information, and now says, okay, I now get the password and the username. So he would now be sitting here just like Dandy. This attacker now here sits because he has your password captured and your username like Dandy. So he's able or capable of logging into this server without creating an account. He doesn't have an account. It's Dandy who has an account. But what has happened? Dandy's credentials or Dandy's login information has been captured. And so he can use it to log into the server. So the point I'm pointing out, what I'm trying to point out here is that it's not this server that creates a hash. It is the password. It is the system is already automated for that. So when you create a password, automatically it is hashed. All passwords that are stored in any server, in any system, are hashed.
Okay.
Does that help?
I think it's correct. I get it.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So we're gonna pass it back to Esley. So we're gonna stop recording for briefly. The reason we're doing this. Yeah, go ahead, Adebayo. Okay. The reason we are
Okay,
going
I'm
to
so sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to, yeah.
yeah, go ahead
Go
and
ahead.
ask.
Go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to ask, like, Madam Esley's screen when she was giving the presentation a couple of minutes ago. I wanted to know because I think it was a slideshow.
Yeah, it was a slideshow.
Hello,
Yeah.
hello. Okay, I wanted to know if that's also part. It's what she presented was part of the slide that was sent to all of us.
Oh no, no, this is it's not part of it. So we're going to share this with you guys. We're going to share the presentation with you. So
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
Mhm.
Yeah, Prof, just to add something. If you look at
okay,
our notes, you will see that what we have is like a summary. And for us to be able to understand these things that are so critical when we
yes,
will be working, because we'll face some of these things at the job site exactly. So for us to be able to understand, we need to do what she's doing now. You go an extra mile to put down things, to build labs, and to put some explanations down so that we can be able to understand. We don't have it, but at the end of the day, she's going to send it to our class and we'll all have.
okay,
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna stop recording briefly, like just to
okay. Thank
explain
you.
the reason we're doing this is we are preparing. We're gonna have lab sessions where we're gonna record for people to have it. Again, this is we are doing this because we want you guys to. Lots of classes out there, they don't give you access to the recordings. Sometimes you just access the recordings somewhere, and maybe after 3 months you can maybe lose access to that site. But we're doing this because we really want you people to get a lot of value from it, and we also expect that people will act responsibly and not just take our recordings and be sharing with sharing with others. So just to give a note on that. So I'm going to stop briefly. We are preparing good labs for you guys. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Leslie.
Okay, yeah, I'm sharing my screen again. Sorry, guys. Our network, it's not too good today, so it's just a little struggle.
Sorry.
Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
I hope I'm gonna be able to navigate well. With a slow network, it's taking a while. Okay. Okay, so we'll be looking at session hijacking. And what is session hijacking? Session hijacking is just that attack where an attacker intercepts the session ID of a legitimate user and makes use of it to access the server with the victim's credentials. And when the user authenticates to a server, what happens? A session ID is created, and this session ID is provided to the client. The session ID is used to maintain the user session onto the server across multiple platforms or interactions. So talking about session hijacking, I know you'll be seeing more about the session IDs and then the cookies. So what are browser cookies? Sorry, my screen is not moving. Oh, Lord. Yeah, I'm trying to get to the next slide. Okay. Yeah, we're continuing with session hijacking. And you've heard that it is that type of attack where an attacker intercepts the session ID of a legitimate user and uses it to access the server with the victim's credentials. So let's talk about browser cookies and session IDs before we continue with the session hijacking. So when we're demonstrating the session hijacking, you're gonna understand how all this come to play in the session hijacking. So what are browser cookies? Browser cookies, they are just small pieces of data that are stored on your computer. I know, there are times that your computer has issues like basic troubleshooting. They'll tell you that, hey, delete the cookies and so on. So what are cookies? They are the small pieces of data that are stored on your computer by your browser. And they are commonly used for like tracking, for personalization. Then they are also used for session management and so on. Cookies themselves are not a security risk, but they can become one if someone gains access to them. Why? Because cookies contain like personal information. So they could be considered a privacy risk because they contain personal confidential information. And what are session IDs? Let's see. Does it go? Sorry, the slow network is just taking some time to move to the next slide. Oh, God. Next. Okay, so what are session IDs? So session IDs are just unique identifiers that is generated by the web server and used to maintain like a user session across multiple browsers. So these session IDs are used to maintain your session on a website and are often stored in cookies. That's why we have browser cookies and session IDs together, because they work together. And they allow the session to be manipulated across like, sorry, let's not manipulated. They allow like a session to be maintained across like multiple browser sessions. So these session IDs, when they are stored in, we said they are stored in cookies, but what happens when you log into like a website, the server kind of generates a session ID for you. And when it generates that session ID, what happens to the session ID? It goes ahead to send it to the browser in the form of a cookie. So the browser then stores the cookie with the session ID and sends it back to the server on a subsequent request. So this then just like allows the server to be able to maintain your session and keep track of your activity on that website. So, okay, here, session with session hijacking. So if you can check, like from this diagram, we have a victim, we have an attacker, we have a web server. So what happens when our victim authenticates to the server, it creates, so the server creates a session ID. You can see our session ID here. So the server then just creates the session ID and then provides it to the, like it creates a session ID and then provides back to the victim. So what happens? The attacker intercepts the session ID. We have the attacker, it has created the session ID. So the attacker intercepts the session ID and uses it to access the server with the victim's credentials. Because what happens, the victim authenticated, a session ID was created, the attacker intercepts it and uses it to authenticate to the web server. And when the attacker authenticates, it allows them to be able to access the victim session on their behalf because it has already authenticated. It is able to like access the session on the victim's behalf because it has made use of the session ID, and that session ID stored in cookies. It has all the information that is needed for them to be able to authenticate on behalf of the server. So with session hijacking, sorry. So to prevent against this session hijacking, we can make use of measures such as end-to-end encryption, Firefox extensions like HTTPS everywhere, and then end to somewhere. So when we talk about making use of end-to-end encryption, how can this be done? So end-to-end encryption can be used to like prevent attackers from capturing the session ID by encrypting. So when you encrypt, it prevents the attacker from capturing your session ID. And how does it work? It will just go ahead to add you like an extra load on the web server, but it is used like a trusted way of implementing like an end-to-end encryption. So let me just give like a brief example, because nowadays you hear people talking about, oh, my WhatsApp was hacked, my WhatsApp was taken over. There's a lot of security measures with WhatsApp that we are not making use of. So for example, WhatsApp has like the encryption capability. There are times that when you open your WhatsApp, it will show like there is end-to-end encryption, but we don't make use of that. And then also with WhatsApp, before someone takes over your WhatsApp, at times they always send you a message. I've received such messages, like you receive a code and someone calls you to be like, oh, you just received a number, we are in this group, we are having blah, blah, blah. Send me that code so I can send it to someone. Once you send, the person gets access to your WhatsApp. But imagine, apart from that encryption that WhatsApp provides, the end-to-end encryption, if you had gone ahead to realize that WhatsApp also has like multi-factor authentication. I don't know how many of us are making use of multi-factor authentication in WhatsApp. If we had gone ahead to make use of the multi-factor authentication, which adds like an extra layer of protection on that WhatsApp, it will be a bit difficult for that attacker to be able to like take over your WhatsApp, because once they get the authentication first, once they get the code, they get into the WhatsApp, it's going to ask, before you log into the WhatsApp, it's going to send a code to that phone number, but that person is not going to have the phone number except your phone was stolen, like your complete phone was taken. If it has to do with like just taking over your WhatsApp and you have that MFA, that's multi-factor authentication set on your WhatsApp, it will be very difficult for that attacker to take over because they are not going to send that code. They're not going to access the code that will be sent to you to give that extra layer of protection. Unless you were just a dummy that you're providing that attacker with all the information, like, oh, the code is sending, the MFA code, you send it to them. If you don't do that, then there is no way they can easily overtake your WhatsApp. So when they talk about, most of the times you hear charity begins at home, but we don't really practice. We want to practice at work, but we don't practice at home. Let's just make use of those security best practices. Just exhaust those. Like, for example, my LinkedIn, I have multi-factor authentication there. My WhatsApp, before you access my WhatsApp, it requires a Face ID to open each time, and then it sends a code. That is like multi-layer protection. I have like, apart from me like opening the WhatsApp, I'm able to prove that I have that number, I have that face before I can access my WhatsApp. It makes it difficult for an attacker to be able to take over my WhatsApp, because even if you take over, you're not going to be able to provide the MFA that WhatsApp will send to me. So it's just like easy, like something that we don't do, but we keep crying every day, oh, this one was overtaken, or my Facebook, but we don't put in that security best practices in place. So the next way that we can like prevent this session hijacking is to make use of Firefox extensions like HTTPS everywhere, or force TLS, which is transport layer as security. So Firefox extensions everywhere and force TLS can be used to force a website to use HTTPS. So these extensions just work by rewriting or modifying a URL. All you have to do as a security person is to configure those. They are automated. They force that website to use HTTPS when it's trying to use HTTP. HTTPS is a secured version. So for example, let's say you install, you configure, and you enable extensions, those HTTPS everywhere, or force TLS, it will just go ahead to intercept your web request and automatically like rewrite your URLs. And what does URL stand for? It stands for Uniform Resource Locator, which is like, URL is just like a string of characters used to identify a resource on the internet. Because for example, I'm asking for something, somebody will be like, hey, can you share the URL? So it just gives you like that string of characters used to identify a resource on the internet. And the resource could be like, for example, a web page. You can have a URL to access an image. You can have a URL to access a video or any type of a file. So when you go ahead and you install and enable those extensions like HTTPS everywhere or force TLS, you intercept your web request and automatically rewrite the URL to use HTTPS. That's something that is happening at the back end, but you did as a security best practice to be able to install and enable. And this can help you to protect like your online activity from being intercepted or maybe tampered with by hackers or malicious actors. And it can also prevent you from certain type of attacks. You know, with all that, it could be able to prevent you from man-in-the-middle attack, one of the attacks that we would hear, like we'll talk about later. So apart from that, we can use like, I know we mentioned TLS. Let me just throw some little light on TLS. The lab that we just demonstrated, you could see TLS there, transport layer security. So when you use the internet information, like when you use the internet, you know, information like, let's say, usernames, your passwords, credit card information, and so on, they are sent over the network. So what does TLS do, which is transport layer security? It is just that way that helps to keep that information that you transmit over the internet to be secured while in transit, because you're sending it over the internet. So TLS will help to keep that information secured over the internet. So for instance, let's think of TLS to be like a protective shield that is able to surround your online communication, making it harder for anyone to be able to intercept, for anyone to be able to read like your information that you're sending. So whenever you visit like a website that uses HTTPS, because you visit a website, some will have HTTP, you see some HTTPS, but most of the times we don't bother like what we are looking for, like what we need to see or what is secured. But when you use a website that has like HTTPS in the URL, what does that mean? It means that your web browser and the website server are using TLS to encrypt your data and keep it safe from the attacker's eye. So that is just what the HTTPS means when you see in a web browser. So it's always like good before you share your credit card information and so on, make sure it is a safe browser. So how would that TLS work? It will work by using like the combination of like encryption, then, you know, their digital certificate. Those are things that happen at the back end to secure your connection between your computer, between your web server, and will help to ensure that information that you send over that internet is protected from being intercepted and tampered with. So another way that we can make use of, that we can prevent a session hijacking is by using end to somewhere encryption. WhatsApp, the example I gave you, see end to end. This one is by using end to somewhere encryption. Excuse me. And this involves like encrypting communication over like local wireless network. For example, when I was sharing the lab here, you saw that I was doing it over VPN using a virtual private network and so on. So, you know, while this, like, for example, the end to somewhere encryption, it prevents attackers from capturing sensitive information over the wireless network, and you make use of a VPN, it will give you that end to somewhere encryption. So whenever you use like a wireless network, for example, let's say like Wi-Fi, we go to coffee shops, we travel, we go to the airport. At times when you get to the airport, you connect to the Wi-Fi to make use of it. What happens is your internet traffic can be vulnerable to attackers who might be snuffing, we've heard of that, just listening, in other words, who might be listening to your communication on the network. And to help protect your data from being intercepted, from being listened to, it is always as a good practice to make use of a personal VPN, to make use of a virtual private network. Let's think of a virtual private network in this way. Just imagine you're sending a letter to like a friend, to anybody, but you really don't want anyone else to read it. What will you do to keep it private? You put the letter in a lockbox before you send it. So your friend now has like the key to the box and can be able to unlock and read that letter. This is similar to how VPN works. So when you use your VPN, your internet traffic is encrypted at the back end before it leaves your computer or your smartphone. So it's like putting your message in a lockbox, for example, and the encrypted traffic is now sent to the internet to a server that runs over the VPN provider, which has the key to unlock that box. Yeah, so with all those measures, you can be able to prevent your session from being hijacked. Prof, do you have anything to add while I check the questions?
Okay, yeah, I can share briefly just to show them how to check that website is secure. That's going beyond just seeing HTTPS. I will share and show you that in a moment, please. Okay. So, but if you have any question, you can just drop them in the chat. So Esley and the other instructors are going to look at them. Okay, thank you. 1 minute, okay. Yes, okay, let me show you that. Okay. Yeah, do you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, for instance, I was trying to check something. So you see, this is a website. This is a website I'm trying to get to. Let me take any of these. Yeah, so you see the lock. You see the lock. So you see HTTPS. We say HTTPS is a secure version for HTTPS or for HTTP, and that we should always check to see that a website has HTTPS. But again, anyone can, even attackers are smarter today. They are able to get the HTTPS. So how do you also know that the site is really secure? I mean, to check more details on that, maybe you go here, then you get more information. You get more information, you see the security. Here you can view the certificate that is being used. The certificate that is being used. You can see the technical details, how what encryption protocol is being used. We see TLS, transport layer security. We see the AES. We talked about AES, which is a secure secure for asymmetric encryption. Asymmetric encryption, we're using no symmetric, we're using AES. Then for asymmetric, we're using SHA. So AES 128 is a secure secure version for symmetric encryption. Then we have SHA. Remember we talked about SHA 256. SHA 256, which is the secured version, the secured algorithm, to get a hash value. Then we did mention that it's 128 bits. So it's important to look at these things, since you know which protocols or which protocols are more secure. So you can check on this and see. Once you see something like maybe you see MD5. Remember we talked about MD5 and we said MD5 has some flaws. It is known to have many flaws that attackers have used in the past. So you can look at these details. It's important. It's part of your learning process. And you look at the certificates. So you're able to view the certificate. You're able to see where it was registered. You're able to see where this website is being hosted. You see US, California is in San Francisco. You can get more details on this, on which cloud is being organization is a cloud. The organization that has this site is Cloudflare Incorporation. So you can see all of this. Is important just to give you to affirm or validate that the site is actually secure. And again, an attacker too will want to go to this extent to look at when they see you when they maybe get that reconnaissance, know the sites you're always visiting, like we talked about the whole was that doctor was explaining to Blandine.
Watering hole attack.
Yes, watching hole attack. So they will go further now to get more details, how secure you are, the type of algorithms that are being used. All of this is reconnaissance. They want to from there now to be able to know which loophole or which area they should pass to. They should get at your target. So it's very important. So I just sort of showing you this so you have a picture of it, and even yourself you can just do this, go to a site and try to check to see that it has those security protocols we're referring to. Okay, I think that is it. We are even above 12. Leslie, do you have you seen any question?
No,
Do you
I
have
don't
any
see
question
any
in the chat?
question they haven't handled.
Okay, so just to ask, do we have any questions? Hello, class. Is there any question? The class today was really interesting.
Very, very interesting.
Yes, it was very interesting.
Listen.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, excuse me. When you were explaining the site, how we can locate the site, we were not actually seeing from the beginning. Will you mind going again through that?
Okay, yes. So for instance, any secure website will have this lock. It will have this
They are
lock.
not seeing your screen, Prof.
Oh, they are not seeing my screen.
You can zoom in your screen.
Okay. Sorry, let me. Do you see my screen now?
Yeah, it's
No.
Okay.
be good.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, so this is an example of a website. A website is a random website. So we see the lock. So we can go further to get more details to validate that it is actually a secure site. So we go here.
Prof, excuse me, Prof. Just go to a site like Google. Go to Google, click on Google. That will be easier for them. Your screen is very tiny. Can you zoom it a bit again? Because they are not able to see.
They are not able to see. Can you see this?
No, you're reducing the size instead. Okay, yeah, this looks better.
Okay, is it good now for all?
But don't see the uniform resource locator. It's very tiny.
Oh, tiny. Yeah, do you see it now?
Yes.
No, it's supposed to be larger than that. We can zoom it
Oh,
and increase the zoom. Maybe to
okay.
like 56.
Do you see it now? Is it
Because
clear now?
we can see the small window, but they will not be able to see exactly what you are trying to show. That's my problem. Because I understand what you are trying to show. I know it. And so nobody who will not be seeing it will not understand.
Okay, give me a minute. Let me okay, let me try this. Okay.
Do you have the access to share?
Is this something? I think I
Did
do.
they give you back the access?
Yeah, I do. I do have access to share. Okay. Let me share my entire screen.
Correct. Okay, beautiful.
You see my screen? You see it now?
Mhm.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. So this is Google. This is the official side of Google. So what I'm trying to explain is every website will just mention that for you to, it's important you validate that a site is secure. And we said HTTPS is a secure version for HTTP. And so we're saying you can get more details. Remember, we've mentioned so many things like in terms of encryption, the algorithm for hashing, the algorithm for, we have not looked at encryption in details. We're going to look at that in the near future. But we can get more details from here. By you click here, if you click on this gives you, and you go to a connection like security.
Still not seeing what you are showing.
Oh, really? You still not seeing what I'm showing?
We can see the screen, but your mouse, you should be pointing and touching what they should click and what will be displayed and so on.
Do you see it now?
But we don't see your cursor.
You don't see my cursor? Okay. Do you see it now?
Yes, I can see it moving now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
so go to the uniform. Your
yes.
cursor should be on the uniform resource locator right now and show them.
Okay. So we go here. Are you seeing this? Are you seeing my cursor now?
Your cursor is lost again.
Oh, can someone share it just so we don't take so much time?
Do you want me to share?
Yes, please.
But I don't have this from my screen. Okay, let me see.
I can give you. Let me give you it so we don't take. Yep, I've given you the host. I don't know what is happening.
I hope my network too will not be disturbing because we have a problem with our network here. Okay, let me just go here. Oh, sorry, wait. You granted me the access to share, right?
Yes, I've done that.
Okay. Let me just type here Google.
You're not sharing your screen yet.
Yeah, I'm not sharing yet. Wait, let me get it, then I can share. Yeah. Let me close this. Close this. Oh, God. Can you both see my screen?
It's very tiny.
Mine
Very
is
tiny.
Yes.
Oh,
There's,
seriously?
there's really something wrong with this today.
Maybe,
Can you both
maybe
see it now?
Yes, we can
maybe
see it, but still tiny.
Yes.
But we
They
can
should
go along like this.
I do see it. I do see it clearly. I don't know.
You see it clearly.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you see my cursor now?
Yeah, I do
Yes.
see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see your
Oh,
cursor.
okay. So we are
Yes.
on Google. I just typed google.com here, and you can see a log besides Google. Can you see the log?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can see a lot.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yes.
for you to validate that a site is actually secured, you type that site on your uniform resource locator, and then you click on it. You will see, if you don't see this log, it means that it's not validated, it's not authentic. Now I'll click on this log. When I click on this log, I will say it tells me here, what are we seeing? Connection is secure. Can we see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, connection is secure.
Yes.
Okay, now we say connection is secure. Your information, for example, passwords or credit card numbers, is private when it is sent to
It
this
doesn't need
site.
water now. One bucket.
Yes, when it's sent to this site, and you can learn more. You can read a lot from here. Okay, now let's see. Certificate is valid. What do you understand by certificate is valid? You come here, you click on that certificate, that information, certificate is valid. You'll be able to see all this information. When it's issued by, so you have to know, here they are trying to present to us the different certificate authorities. Certificate authorities are those who grant the certificate to you. So you have to know, if you maybe you know some of the certificate authorities, so you now say, okay, let me check. Does it fall within those ones that are really legitimate and authentic? The first thing is issued to who? Is, you see the common name is issued to google.com. Organization, not part of the certificate. Organizational unit, not part of, okay, no problem. But this certificate is issued to google.com. And is issued by who? Now you are looking at the certificate authority. Common name, CN. Organization days, GTS certificate,
Yeah.
IC33, yes. So that's the common name for that certificate. So what we are trying to do here is just to validate that a site you are visiting is secured. If you don't have all of this information, then that site is not secured. And you can see here, it's fingerprinted by SHA-256. SHA-256. That will be the hashing, because the certificates are stored. Their data on rest. So sorry, data at rest. So when you see it, you know that this certificate is authentic. It is hashed, so that nobody can just tamper with it anyhow. So all of that, you need to check all of this. That's what Prof was trying to show. Except that you have something to add, Prof.
No, that is it, doctor. That is it. We also saw the TLS. If you go to learn more, still on what you were showing, doctor, learn more, you see technical details where you see the AES, the SHA, but you've already made mention of that. So that is it. It's important for you to know this. Myself, some of these things I only knew them when I was working, working, but you have the opportunity to know these things now. So please, you can always practice them when doing your study time. Okay.
Yeah,
So thank
and
you.
Prof, I knew this only when I was asked in an interview and I had to come back and struggle to see what was there. Because the guy asked me that, what if you go to the uniform resource locator and type something like Google, what are you going to see? And the question was like vague to me. I said, what do you mean? He said, yes, for you to validate a site, what will you see? I had never heard of it. So I had to come back and try to do it. And so these are things that they will ask you questions in your interview, and they can also help you as an individual to know which sites are secured and which ones are not secured, like Madam Esley explained. Yeah, so.
Okay, yeah, so thank you so much. We are 13 minutes after 12. I mean, the 2 hours is always insufficient for.
Excuse Prof.
Yes, go ahead,
I'm
Esli.
putting our website on the chat, just for Madam, since she's sharing, to open the website, then we can see the difference between what we just showed right now.
Okay.
Oh, you are putting a link?
Yeah, just put a link on the.
Okay, I should click on that link.
Yeah, open the link so they can see what happens.
Okay, good. Can they see the screen?
Yes, I can see your screen. Class, do you see?
Can a
Dr.
student read what he's seeing on the uniform resource locator? Somebody should read. My cursor is here.
Not secure. Problem.com.
Yes. People.com.cn. Yes, it's not a secured site. Have we seen the log? No, there is no log. Yes, and it tells so that's how you can identify some of those legitimate sites. You have to validate that a site is secure for you to actually visit. Most of these attackers, they will use some of those unsecured sites, and because they know that we don't know, you just go click there, start searching. As you click, and they will ask, enter your email, your email address, you are this, you are that, and you go on and on and on, and they are gathering the information. So
they have their tools. They have their tools at the back end, gathering the information.
Yeah, exactly. So let me add something, because most of the times, like, we widely use Facebook, and there are always ads that pop up most of the times. At times you see something that is on sale, and deep in you, you know that it's too good to be true, but you still go ahead, you click that link and you try to purchase. So when you click that link, always remember to check the security level, check if you have a log. Because if you see a website like this one that I just posted, you're selling something and you put your data there, you put your credit card information, you know you're willingly sending your information to unsafe hands.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Do we have any question? If there
yes,
are
I do. Yeah, I do have, but because of time, I don't know.
No, go ahead with your question, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Madam Esley talk of VPN, virtual private networks. I just wanted to know if when you use it, it marks your protocol, or it makes your protocol, it makes your
connection
IP.
invisible.
Yeah, it makes your IP, it makes you invisible for the attackers.
Yeah, Ashley, you want to add? Can you just go ahead and throw more light on that? I know we're going to look at VPN again in the future.
We'll look at it in detail. But what happens is, like, when you're working over the VPN, which is a virtual private network, it allows you to be able to create like a secure encrypted connection over the internet. So when you use VPN,
that's why they call it tunneling. Tunneling, because it's like a tunnel.
Yeah, exactly. It's routed through like a remote server operated by the VPN provider, which then encrypts your traffic and masks your IP address.
Yep.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's okay. It's understood.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. We're going to look at that. Thanks so much. Yes, just a number of things. We have, please, when you join the class, try to use your real names. It's important you use your real names for us to be able to identify you. From next next class, if we see names that we cannot identify, we're going to kick the person out of the class. So please try to use your real names. I don't know who is using iPhone. You're logging with your iPhone. Who is that, please? Okay. Do we see our part two? Okay. Yeah, who is this person, please? With iPhone, please, if it's possible, can you identify yourself?
And
Yes, easy class.
maybe the person does not know how to change to his name. You can always just right click on where you see your iPhone information, and you right click there and you change the name and put your name. That's what we are asking you guys to do. For
Yes,
every
please,
other
it's
person, it's
important.
okay, but for this F4G, F whatever iPhone, who is the person, please?
And it's not respond.
It's not responding.
Okay. No, but from next class, from next class, if we see you join, if you join the class without your full name, we're going to kick you off of the class. It's important because we have to be strict, because I've noticed that some of us are not we're not following the rules, which is important. I know most classes you have to keep your videos, on, but we don't do that. We don't do that here. I mean, in the future, we might have to go to that, because we want to identify all those that are taking the course. We don't want people joining us whom we don't know, and this is a lot of things are happening today. So, okay, and again,
Okay.
while we're in class, please don't just write anyone. Don't just write anyone to get information. And if someone writes to you that you cannot see the person's name, you don't know, please try to avoid that. You can send that questions to us, and we'll be able to identify the person. Okay. Yeah, thank you. That said, we are 20 minutes after class. Can we have one person pray for us before we end the class? We have one person.
Sorry, are we still grouping? Sorry, are we
Yes,
still grouping?
yes, you're gonna get the grouping by the end of today.
Yeah, exactly.
By the end of today, that will be your study group. Okay, let's have one person pray for us, please.
Okay. No assignment.
If there is an assignment, we're going to send that to our Slack. But there's 2 assignments I gave, and not all of you have submitted.
Yeah,
So
sorry,
I've not
Prof.
seen. Yeah, go ahead.
Since we have a class tomorrow, it's a short time frame. So we can just give you this time to study and understand what we did, so the class can be able to be more interactive tomorrow.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
tomorrow we can now give an assignment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. If there is no one to pray, I'm going to pray for you. Then or do we have someone to pray?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yes. Go
Let
ahead.
us pray. Father, we thank you for today. Thank you. It was a huge success. We wouldn't have done this without your help. We thank you because we know you are preparing us for greater things ahead. We pray, Lord, that may you help us, Lord, to practice what we have learned. And we pray, Lord, for our teachers, our lecturers, Lord, you give them more wisdom and give them more knowledge to impact in our lives. We pray, Lord, that may we not regret this decision, and may it be, oh God, a stepping stone for us, oh God, in the future, in the name of Jesus Christ. We pray to meet tomorrow, oh God, in full numbers as today. In the mighty name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
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 Yes,
Amen.
thank you again. Please prepare before tomorrow class, prepare your questions, and you can ask those questions, even send them to our Slack, and we'll be there to answer you. Thank you. See you tomorrow. God bless you.
Have a good day, everyone.
Yep, have a good day.
Good
Have
day.
a good day.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you, prof. Thank you, Madam Esley. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
Maybe Esley and Madam, you can have a 5-minute talk if there is Mr. Leonard there, just a 5-minute talk
Okay.
before.
I was just about leaving. I
Oh,
paused.
you're about to.
I
Oh, you
paused
have something.